am joined now by outgoing Republican Congressman Denver Riggleman of Virginia, one of the few House Republicans to call out President Trump and his fellow Republicans for questioning the results of last month's election. Congressman, it's great to have you on Meet the Press Daily today. Thank you very much for being here. It sounds like, and we're still reporting this out, and there are many questions about the process simply because we have not really faced a precedent for this, and the law that exists to govern the certification process is a little bit vague in some key areas. But we potentially expect to see dozens of your colleagues in the House be willing to object to the results of the presidential election, to specific states, to challenge the results, to speak on the floor challenging the results. What do you say to them about what impact that has on our democracy?
You know, politically, and again, thanks for having me. Politically, for them, it might be great for their base, for their fundraising, for things like that. But nationally, it's horrific. And I think that I find it amazing that right now we have Republicans that are actually objecting to federalism and wanting sort of this overthrow or this, you know, sort of let's throw out the electoral voters. Let's ignore the states who've already litigated this and let's move forward. And the only thing I could say is it's nuts. It doesn't make any sense right now unless it's about fundraising for a specific base. They're looking to go forward politically somewhere, whether they want to be favor the president over the next 4 years. But really, it's all of this is based on disinformation and conspiracy theories. And I think that's what bothers me, is that they're throwing away federalism, throwing away what makes this country great, which is the ability for the states to choose who they want to represent them, all for really a baseline of disinformation and ridiculousness. And I think I've been screaming about this for a few months, as you know, and I would say stop. When does a scam become a coup? And I think that's what we have to start talking about is when do we actually have fantasy dictating what we're talking about as parties or as free-thinking individuals. And I think it's a frightening prospect for them to continue down this road.
Were you surprised that Senator Josh Hawley was willing to join in on this? And how do you view that? Is it a critical moment for our country in this fight generally? Or, I mean, what's your take on his willingness to go along with your colleagues in the House?
I think he must have talked to some individuals who thought that his fundraising could go much higher if he were to do something like this. And there's three facets to this. You know, when you look at disinformation, number one, this is the ultimate self-licking ice cream cone. You inject disinformation into the constituents and then use that disinformation as a rationalization to protest this. It's unbelievable. And it's how disinformation works, right? It's a self-licking ice cream cone. Number two, fundraising. A lot of people are fundraising off of fantasy. And it comes a time you have to get more and more provocative to raise those funds. The thing is that provocative nature can actually cause radicalism and people to act on this thinking that it's true when it's not. And third, it seems to me that Josh Hawley is looking for higher office. Maybe he's positioning for 2024. This is all just political. It has nothing to do on rule of law, has nothing to do on what's good for this country. It has to do with what's good for the individual. And that's the problem that we have with elected officials today, is that it seems to be true now that it's really about Twitter followers or assuaging the Twitter mobs or assuaging a certain specific part of your electorate instead of doing what's right, and that's serving your country based on the Constitution. And again, I think that's why people are tired of career politicians and tired of the ridiculous tripe you see from Senator Hawley saying he's going to come out against this election on states that have already decided it. I mean, it's anti-federalism, and I think it's what Republicans are not for. So it is interesting to me that we're looking at a federal takeover of the elections when we stand against those federal takeover elections as soon as 2018. I mean, the first vote in 2019 and HR 1. It doesn't make any sense to me.
So what do you know about what kind of conversations your colleagues in the House have had with the vice president and his team? Because a lot of how this all plays out and what the country is going to be subjected to on January 6th may end up resting with him. You've got Louis Gohmert attacking Mike Pence over this, suing him literally to try and force his hand. Can you give us any insight into what those conversations have been like and how this may actually play out on that day?
Well, I've been with the vice president multiple times, and I want to say this. I would be incredibly surprised if he went along with any of this. He's a man of integrity, so I can't imagine that he would do that. However, when you look at Louis Gohmert, or you look at Kelly Ward, you look at Arizona right now, and specific portions of the Republican Party, they seem to have an affinity for conspiracy theories. And really, this lawsuit that you see from Louis, it's not even worth the paper it's written on. It's complete crap. And I think that's what we know. I don't think the vice president would even do this. I don't think he would entertain it. This lawsuit's not going to go anywhere. But what frightens me is, again, I want to emphasize this. This is being used for fundraising. It's a grift. It is to fool people into giving them money. It is like taking milk money, as a bully in a schoolyard, but instead of fighting for it, you tell them that a vampire is going to come in the room and take it if you don't pay them. That is what this is about. I've been stressing that this is about fundraising, but it's hurting the American public because it is dictating dialogue that is based on unicorns and Bigfoot and not exactly what we're doing right now, which is trying to have a republic based on fact.
Bigfoot. All right. Congressman Denver Riggleman, thank you very much for being here today. Really appreciate your time. And coming